The South African National Defence Force has recently received 3.6 billion rand in additional funding from the Finance Ministry. The department is in the spotlight over the irregular spending of 14.3 billion rand over the past 5 years and has been singled out by the AG, this is the Auditor General's office, as being an habitual offender, that it doesn't comply with procurement legislation. Freelance investigative journalist Erica Gibson joins me to talk more about this particular story and one she's taken a focus on. Erica, good morning. Appreciate your time. Take us back into the tenets of the AG's findings on the Department of Defence, which makes this medium-term budget allocation even more concerning.
Iman, good morning. The Defence Force finds itself in a pickle, in a catch-22 situation, where it's damned if it does, and it's damned if it doesn't. It has to spend money, and sometimes it has to apply crisis management due to unplanned commitments and operations. That's like in the DRC or in Mozambique. So it makes it extremely difficult not to make any mistakes when handling money, because you have to shift your money around all the time, because it was unbudgeted for and so on. So the AG just does her work. She finds irregularities in the spending, and there's lots of it that we know from her report. We know that it's improving, but it's not improving fast enough. So while on the one hand it's become almost a sort of a mantra, the Defence Force is always in need of more money. It always is in need of more money. But there's never time to sit back, reflect, see what they have, see what they can do, how they can do it better, and what they can't do, because that's another problem that government doesn't understand.
Yeah.
It doesn't understand that the Defence Force is not your panic button that responds every time you push it.
All right, we'll circle back to what the Department of Defence basically is talking about, reforms and how they mitigate the situation. But you touched on a couple of things there, and these are the programs that our military is involved in and the costs associated with that, like the one you just mentioned, the deployment of the Southern African Development Community's force in the Democratic Republic of Congo. That so far cost our military nearly 2.5 billion rand. You've got SA's mission in Mozambique. That's cost taxpayers more than R1 billion this year. And money, we understand, and what you've shared in your report, spent on the repatriation of broken and other equipment, an extra 153 million rand going towards the repair of the force's unserviceable helicopters. And their salaries, I mean, the list goes on. 3.4 billion rand for salaries, 2.1 billion directly ring-fenced for emergency deployments like those in the DRC. But Erica demands that there are even more stringent controls. But as you write, those controls either are not in place or dysfunctional. So talk to us about what you found around how, on a day-to-day, monthly, from an accounting perspective as well, how the military is actually managing its money.
There's it's not a single problem. It's a combination of the perfect storm. And what's been happening in the past couple of years, Treasury have been pushing that the Defence Force must lower its salary bill, because it's paying more than, altogether, almost 80% of its budget goes to salaries, which is totally unacceptable. So you're sitting with a whole lot of people that the Treasury just see numbers. They want fewer numbers. So last year and the year before, they instituted voluntary service severance packages. So many people left, but the wrong people left. Your people with experience, your people with financial experience, they all left. So you left with a very a junior and I don't want to say unskilled, but an inexperienced group of people that needs to handle a whole lot of money. And that is proven to become increasingly very, very difficult. What we've been pleading for is that there should be a total rethink of what government expects from the Defence Force, what the Defence and the prime mission of the Defence Force. Should the Defence Force be more outward focused on these very expensive and costly missions abroad? Or should it restrict that and just say to the region, listen, we have to get our house in order now first? Or like Bantu Alamisa said, there's a serious inefficiency and systemic flaws. The Defence Force needs to fix the flaws. Otherwise, it's going to continue to be a drain to taxpayers' money. Coupled to that, you also have gross, and that really is gross, the corruption and just misspending and fruitless expenditure of money. That needs to be curbed. And again, Olomisa accentuated that. He said there is no consequence management. So where there's millions and billions lost, we have to recuperate. People have to they have to be tried for it. They have to say what happened to that money. That isn't happening at the moment. Apart from that, you're sitting, the Secretary of Defence is the chief accountable officer within the department. She holds the strings to the money bag.
Yeah.
But she's been, there's only one acting for the past 2 years. There's not even a permanent person. It's a very capable acting doctor. Dr. Gumede is incredibly capable. But she's in an acting position. That doesn't give her that much power to enforce and to restrict people's spending. The department's chief financial officer, it's also an acting person, not filled with anyone. So you're sitting with the problem is the misspending of the money, but you have to fix the reasons why it's happening. Yeah. Before you can even do that. And then you also have to plug the holes where the corruption is taking place. I mean, for last year, for a department that's constantly pleading it doesn't have money, it doesn't have aircraft that's flying. Last year alone, they bought 39 to be exact, luxury vehicles. I mean, that is top of the range vehicles. Why do you do this when your department is poor and your equipment is falling apart?
That's right. Erica, I want to come in there because you talk about excessive spending in the piece that you write. And I'm glad we have this focus again, because when we think about where we're hemorrhaging cash, this is certainly one of the areas that is certainly hemorrhaging cash and can certainly do with that. As you say, they need to stop, reassess and begin to start plugging those gaps. We think about the 180 million rand, which you've mentioned in your piece, and this is for the repair of those military vehicles by Cuban technicians to get the COVID-19. We haven't even, spoken enough about that whole fiasco. And then the rental of St. George's Hotel in Tshwane, for example, that again didn't go according to their procurement processes. And then other purchases of buildings. Again, we're talking massive price tags. But I want to come to the fix then, because we'll certainly get a response and an update from the Department of Defence on how it's going to deal with this, how it's inward looking, and what some of the outcomes are going to be in terms of these budget allocations. But let's talk about the course correct, right? We heard in Parliament from Thobekile Gamede, this is the Acting Secretary of Defence and the Chief Accounting Officer of the department, that there is already retraining. And already 117 financial officers have undergone this training, with the result that irregular spending was reduced from 4.1 billion in 21-22 financial year to 338 million in 23-24. Does this give you the sense that they're on a path to recovery?
Iman, I'm forever the optimist and forever the pessimist. I've been dealing with the Defence Force long enough that one tends to get cynical. Every year, the Auditor General comes with her findings, and most of them are pretty scathing as far as the Defence Force is concerned. And every year there is a whole handful of plans. It's we're doing this and we're doing that and we're doing that. Reskilling definitely would help, especially with the loss of senior people. But what do you do when people disregard the financial controls? It's not as if the Defence Force has never had financial controls before. The problem is when people and senior people disregard the existing financial controls, when they willingly spend the money on something, or they use it for what it's not supposed to be used for. That you can do all the skilling in the world, but you have to have consequence management. You have to get people to say, okay, I had so much money that was under my control. This is what I did with it. And this is how I managed to work a little bit cleverer with it. If I didn't do it, if I can't account for a certain amount, then there has to be consequences. And that is what the Auditor General also said. People must be held personally responsible for misspending and corruption under their watch. And that is not happening. For whatever reason, it's just not happening. And a year or two ago, the former Secretary of Defense actually spelled it out. She said she can't tell a general that he must do this and that about another general acting in an irregular way. She doesn't have the power to do so.
Yeah.
So there's a total imbalance of who is actually applying the rules and who is complying with the rules. Because if you handle all the rules and regulations with disdain, it doesn't matter if you have 2,000 people reskilled, because they're not going to have an effect. You have to have people who are seriously committed to pulling in those purse strings and get it working.
We'll leave it there, Erica, but we will not put a full stop on the conversation. Again, we'll get a response from the Department of Defense and from the SANDF on exactly how they are going to respond to some of the things that you've outlined in your piece, which is already common knowledge. It's there. It's in the report. It's in Parliament. Everything is out in the public domain, is how they begin to rein this in and build a new outcome, at least from an audit perspective, for the SANDF. Erica Gibson is a freelance investigative journalist, just sharing with us her piece in News 24 around the spending problems in the Department of Defense. It's a story we will continue to watch and get response from their representatives as well. More news and views at the top of the hour. Stay with us.